Welcome to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Welcome. Wholesale Hotline number 79. Today we are talking about something that I think is on all of our minds all the times as we're starting to create our businesses, as we're starting to buy and own real estate, as we're starting to find discounted property and or working with people that are in distressed situations and finding those opportunities and getting those people out of the distressed situations. And it all comes down to, well, what's the long-term path? What's the long-term goal? Where does this go? What are we doing this all for? And a lot of people talk about legacy. And I was interested by that word. I think that word is it's brandished all the time and people use it and it gets thrown around a lot, but I didn't really understand what it was. And I literally just looked it up. And it is the amount of money or property that you leave to somebody in a will. That is the first definition of a legacy. I think most of the time, Pace and Rick, you will agree here, or we'll open it up to conversation here. But I think legacy is also what we instill in our family and the people that are around us to be happy, to go after their goals, to think about living a incredible life, a life that they are really interested in and they feel very fulfilled by. I think that's more of the legacy. Obviously the property and the money side feels very good, but that feels very old school. Like, they put that together in England in like the 1500s type of thing. But what we're really getting into here is talking about legacy. And we had Rick's son Zach on a couple weeks ago, who is just doing incredible things, and it's our fortune to have Rick on. And Rick also has other children that we'll get into and speak about as well. We won't just leave them out. But before we started this show, we were having a conversation backstage, so to speak, and Pace, you were really talking about your son. And he's 13. He's starting to blossom from a little kid into a young man, and just kind of the transition of seeing you do incredible things and being interested in that. And so I kind of will put it in your hands, Pace, to open this thing up. But Rick, we're very excited to have you here and talk about this, because I think that this is really, at the end of the day, it's the influence, right? It's the impact that we have on our family and friends, and the legacy that we leave behind. But
I love this. So this is funny.
There's a lot of traps.
On my yellow pad, I wrote, "What is legacy?" And then you open the show up, unprovoked, by the way, and you jump into the description of legacy is all about finances, which is interesting. So I look at legacy as a big part of, like, Rick, you've done a lot of coaching, I imagine, right?
I've done my share, yes.
Okay. Do you feel like when you're coaching people, a lot of what you're doing is actually breaking maybe the chains, the emotional chains or the mental chains that have been put on them basically from the environment that they grew up in?
I 100%. Most coaching comes down to mentality, because until they can fix all the pre-programming they've had from the media, the parents are a big one. I came from my parents, go to school, go to college, get a good job. I gave up at 33. It didn't work. I was I was working 80 hours a week. So I decided to break that cycle at 33, take a major risk, 2 small kids, and left my bi-monthly 6-figure job to pursue this passion. And that was when, it was gray back then. There wasn't a lot of information. Like if you could get information, it was amazing to get a hold of it. And back then, to be honest with you, the barriers to entry to coaching were high. I mean, it was like 20 grand to set up a website, to get coding. And this was back when it was really hard to do.
Oh yeah.
And, now we fast forward, 19, 20 years. It just seems like there's a million coaches out there. And part of our navigation is kind of getting through it. But whenever I work with someone, if it's paid, if it's free, whatever it is, it always starts here. And until you can get this thinking fixed,
Bro,
and most of it is just what they're used to.
I'm so glad that you start out that way because, we all know who Robert G. Allen is, wrote all these amazing books, Nothing Down, The Challenge, all sorts of stuff. He says the other day, I met him in Key West, and he says, after 27 years of teaching real estate, the number one thing that differentiates between people being successful and not successful has never been and never will be access to information. It is always the mindset that keeps people from being successful or forces people to be successful. So I look at legacy, going back to legacy, as either A, figuring out how your children will never have to break through those mental barriers. Because at age 33, working 80 hours a week with 2 children, that wasn't just physically hard. That was mentally nearly impossible for you to break away because your parents didn't teach you that stuff. Your parents probably taught you what my parents taught me, which was work with your hands and work really, really hard. Right. And then you get to 33 and you're not just learning real estate, you're learning how to have faith in those actions. You're learning how to not see immediate results from your actions. There's so many things that you have to learn when you didn't come from a real estate background. Right. And I think legacy is leaving your children with without all of those hurdles, right? Saying, look, I'm going to remove as many of these hurdles as you possibly can. You choose to get into real estate or not, doesn't matter. But either way, I'm going to remove all these mental barriers. I'm not going to teach you to work till 33 years old at 80, 80 hours a week. I feel like that is part of the legacy that you're leaving behind. It's not just for your son. It's also for your daughter, she's gone into the medical field, right?
Yeah. She's actually she got her bachelor's in nursing, and now she's working. She just started full-time at our local hospital in the COVID ICU unit. And she is attending the University of Florida to get her doctorate to advance her. And we sat down and did an ROI calculation. Like, okay, if we spend X amount of money, here's your salary. Now, in the medical field, they're in very, very high demand. So she looked at being a nurse practitioner or they call it a nurse anesthetist, the person who sticks the IV in you.
They make really good money.
Yeah. So she's only 20 years old. So she's got another 3 years of schooling. So she lives at home with me and her mother. And she does the schooling online. And so she has to travel up there like once a month and do her labs and stuff. And she has to do an intern, and she has to get 2 years before she can get the nurse practitioner and get into that. So we kind of came up with a plan. So we're spending a little bit of money with school, but like, not, like $10,000, $15,000 because she got all the scholarships. And so she'll be making a high, like 6-figure job out of it. And that was worth it. Now, when Zach went to school, he also went to University of Florida. He got everything paid for. He got such good grades. I couldn't say anything. So I said, just go do it. Just treat it like regular school. And he went and turned it into a cold call center. And I got there and it was like, hey, where's Zach? Where's Zach? I got to talk to him about this deal. And he just had fun with it. I said, get through college as fast as you can. And you know what? People used to tell him, hey, you're missing out on the greatest years of your life. Zach's like, you have no idea what's coming. So Zach's one of those kids that you ever like told your kid everything you did wrong. And they're like, Zach listened. Like I went through, I go, oh man, I would have started saving when I was 15. started taking all his money, started saving it. And then we got into, I was like, hey, I can't do this hourly job thing. And we'll get into that. But it's, you know, to me, legacy really, it boils down to the impact you leave in life. And what I love about wholesaling, I want everybody to understand it on here, is what Pace does, what Brent does, what I do. We do it to make it fit our lifestyle. Now, I didn't start through 33, and I've gone up. I've had 15 people on my staff. I've had everything. I'm 51 now. And as life progresses, you change some of your priorities. And I'm all about like high margins and having a business you can walk away. Yep. And Zach's, I've had a lot of business partners. I've had a lot of bad ones. I've had some bad experiences, but Zach's the guy. I'm going to walk you through how I trained him to do this. He'll walk through a wall, like nothing stops it. But I did that training long before he did real estate. And we can get into it, but I love this business because it gives me what I want. I got out of the corporate world. I just wanted freedom of my time. So my father spent no time with me. At 33. So
what was the reason? Was there like a tipping point, or just something one day you just throw up your hands in the air and you're like, F this, I'm out?
Yeah. So my boss was 100 miles away. So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. And they go, we want you to go up this town in Port St. Lucie and open up like 10 offices. And just like, I had no experience negotiating commercial leases. And I just went out there. So I had to go, I bought a bunch of books on commercial real estate, and I go out and negotiate deals. It was so cheap back then, and they were just begging me. And then what happened is I go, man, I know how to talk to people. Let's get it going. And I opened up 15 offices up here, what they call the Treasure Coast. And that was kind of it. And I just started, what happened is they kept moving me through the corporate world, and I'd make like 50 grand selling my house. They'd pay for the realtor commission and everything. And I'd tell my wife, don't unpack those boxes. That's fine. So I just do work with a realtor. I'd find a good deal, and I'd sit on it, wait the 2-3 years to get, the best taxable situation. And then that got me thinking. The pressing point was, you had to do stuff with the boss, and everybody came from California. So I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where you can be on your own boss, as Will Ferrell says. And I did it for 11 years, and it did teach me financials, but I had to wear a suit every day.
For 11 years.
And we had to vacuum the cars out in South Florida in 95 degrees.
Oh my
80%
gosh.
humidity.
Nope.
No.
And I just said, man, I can't take this anymore. So long story short, I went to a seminar, and this guy turned me on like how you could flip real estate. Well, it had nothing to do with wholesaling. It was like working with realtors. And I quickly bought 5 houses, and the banks wouldn't give me a loan anymore. I'm like, what do I do from here? And then I had to go out and I had to get on a lot of planes to find people wholesaling, because it wasn't no YouTube, no Facebook. And I just had to network so the only way you could do it back then was with like RIAs. That was the best way to network. And I probably got on 20, 30 airplanes, and I just wanted to consume as much information as I possibly could. And when I do something,
was that while you were with Enterprise, or did you make
Yes.
a clean break from Enterprise before you?
So here's what I did. I had a whopping, I think $10,000 to my name at the time. I had a lot of expense. 10,000 was a lot of savings, because that's how I was programmed. And I told my wife, if I can set a year of my salary aside, now I'd make like 100 grand, but by the time you're done with the W-2, you know how that works out. About 5 months, I made like 120 grand flipping houses. And I don't like to go back in the heyday story, because it really doesn't help the users here, because you can compare it. Like I used to send 500 handwritten postcards, and I'd get like 200 responses. That's how it was when I started. And everything went to voicemail, and then we would sort it out. And I was so quick to sell. Like I didn't want to own anything. Like I wholesaled everything, 5,000-10,000. And then I started going, I made some guys very, very happy. My first deal I flipped was through a realtor in downtown Fort Lauderdale, the Los Olas area. And I flipped it, and they were getting financing, and I got a $10,000 assignment fee when banks used to let you get it. And once I cashed that check, I just did it over and over again. And then basically 5-6 months down the road, I tried everything I could do to get fired, because in my contract, if you got fired, you got a severance. I couldn't get fired, Pace. I tried everything. And the less I leaned on my employees and the more I gave them freedom to do their jobs, they actually performed a heck of a lot better.
Interesting. I've been talking about this for the last like week with people. It's crazy.
And it was probably it was one of my most satisfying experiences. So I got my company car. I drove down to Fort Lauderdale. I go, listen, I haven't been to work in like 2 months. I feel guilty. You guys are just sending me paychecks. And I was all in on my flipping business, and kind of the rest is history there. I love it. Now, I started out in 2003 for clarification, and I've been through some wild rides in this, man. It's been fun. So I had to reinvent myself a couple times.
You had a wild ride 5-6 years after you started, man.
Port St. Lucie was probably the wildest ride of them all, because I went through in 04, 05, I owned 30 houses. Like I did everything. And I got hit with back-to-back hurricanes with the typical roof that was 20 years old. And then I had to do a crash course on how to work with public adjusters, which I knew nothing about. And back then, they used to ride around in the car and they go, okay, I think it's 30,000. I go, no, it's 55. So I started flipping with public adjusters. When you have 30 houses, it's a huge, you got one shot, and like they were the judge and jury. Back then they had carte blanche to write checks on the spot. Fast forward today, none of that works.
Oh yeah. It goes through like 7 layers.
But the values dropped almost 70% in Port St. Lucie within an 18-month period, and rentals, they were pretty much giving them away. And I had a fixed cost on these properties with loans. And then this guy would drop his rent. He'd drop his rent. I go, you know what? I did this wrong. I did it wrong. And I learned a valuable lesson back then. And I'm not a great landlord. I'm the first to tell you. If you have a chance to like buy an apartment or do something like that, have it professionally managed. But I almost lost my mind. And so I tried to do property management. I hired people, and I liquidated the whole portfolio and just started over. And then here I am sitting in 2009. You couldn't give a house away. Everyone's like, wholesaling doesn't work. It worked. You just had to develop a good relationship with your buyers. And I identified a need in the market, and everything was upside down. I'm like, okay, there's got to be, someone's got to capitalize on that. And that's when I learned from a group of people, I believe out of Tampa, on how to flip short sales. And it was the Wild West for 4 years. So we would have 50 to 75 properties under contract, which is basically an option. And we made some huge profits. And so I had a full-time negotiator, and we worked through it. And so from 2009 to 13 is what really kept me afloat, because we were all second guessing ourselves on wholesaling still worked, guys. It really did. You had to understand your buyer very, very well. And the rest is history. I mean, I've always wholesaled. The struggle was from 2009 to 13. And when I figured out short sales, we did them back in land trust the whole time then. And then I got sat down with the state of Florida because they wanted to know, what am I doing?
Yep.
Because realtors were getting upset. Title companies are like, I don't know what he's doing. I think it's illegal. And so I sat down and showed them what I'm doing. And they said, listen, stop doing that. We're watching you. I go, okay, no more land trust. And so we long story short, we had to fund all our deals and do it straight up. And, but there was no restrictions. It was fun, man. It was scary. In 2009, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I bought another business. It completely tanked. I lost a lot of money in that. And I said, that's it. I'm going to go back in wholesaling. It's what I loved. It's what I'm most passionate about. And I've never looked back. I don't let anything distract me. Cryptocurrency, Amazon, FBO. I'm a real estate guy. It's what I'm best at. It's what I love. And I've been doing it 19 years. And like, I love it. Like, me and Zach worked on 2 deals this morning, and I'm just like, I just love everything I do with it.
I got a whole bunch of stuff to unpack on this. This is great. Really, really good information. And I love the origin story. And I love crypto thing, like not getting deviated from that. A couple of our friends posted today that they've been losing money on Bitcoin and Forex and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, honestly, I'm a real estate guy. I should not have gotten out of my lane. I lost a bunch of money on this Bitcoin thing. And then all of a sudden it goes up and like I should have just stayed in my lane in real estate and doubled down. And that's wholesale and fix and flip and whatever else. But that being said, I do love that. Here's a question. Okay. We've got a pretty high market. I'm looking at this and it's feeling reminiscent. I know the numbers are different and the lending laws are different. And I know all of, supply demand. I know all of that stuff. I get it. But my question is, it feels reminiscent of 2004, 5, 6, 7, when things were just getting out of control. Prices were just, you could buy a property, hold it, 6 months later, sell it and make $100,000. It feels very reminiscent of that. Do you feel like we'll have another crash in the next 2-3 years? And if so, what do wholesalers need to do to prepare for that? What can a wholesaler do to prepare for that? If that's my main business model as a wholesaler, what can I do to prepare for that?
Okay, so let's start out with the fundamentals of why we all wholesale. I started wholesaling because, to be honest with you, I felt I was minimizing my risk. I really did. If you look at it, it doesn't matter if the market goes up or down. You guys got to look at this just like stocks. You're never, ever going to be able to time stocks. The beauty thing about real estate is it doesn't happen overnight. So if you look at the last major meltdown we had, which was the '08, it took about 18 to 24 months to really find like a bottom. But I remember I'm like, we were flipping houses in Port St. Lucie, $30,000. I'm talking about 4-bedroom, 2 baths, new construction type of stuff. I couldn't even wrap my head around like the numbers, but there was thousands of them on the market. And that was the problem. It's like, who had the deepest pockets? So I have watched since 2015, everybody make their bold predictions. And here's the truth of it. We don't know. We try to look at indicators. Listen, I watch you guys' show. I pay attention as much as I possibly can. The supply demand thing, as we know, they're short on building.
Yep.
Inflation's raging out of control. Everyone wants to buy assets to protect their downside. And you have record low interest rates and a change of administration. So I've just come to the point, to be honest with you, I sat back in COVID and I made a personal kind of provocation, silently to myself. This has got to be the catalyst that sets it off. And I was wrong. And
I had the same exact feeling, 100%. I sat there with my office and my partners, and I was like, this was the black swan event that everybody's been waiting for since 2013, when everybody says, wow, the market's come back. We're going to have another crash, but it's going to take some black swan event that nobody's predicting. I had the same exact thing, and it was about a week long, and man, was I wrong. 100% wrong. So
I don't make predictions anymore. But I'll tell you, I was the same guy in '06. And I'm like, this thing ain't going to crash. Like I just loved wholesaling. It's going to go forever. And the writing was on the wall. The pricing in Florida is out of control. We're doing a flip right now. Like we're doing condos and townhomes. It's like the new affordable housing. Make $100,000 on a condo, a 2-2 condo.
Yep.
That I did a subject to. The challenge with the HOAs and with the lawyers and stuff is forcing me to sell it because I got called to the plate on it, but I'm fine. I'll find a million others, but I'm done making predictions. To be honest with you, I've been preparing since 2015 because I was so scolded in that 07, 08. And me and Zach just had a conversation. I said, let's just do what we do best and just see if we're wholesaling. So my motto in my company, I have a very small company, is past subject to or stuff we're going to hold in our portfolio. It's 90 days, guys. If you own it on the 91st days, I'm coming in, I'm going to make 2 phone calls and sell it for you. I don't care what the number is. If you can't get a wholesale done from start to finish in 90 days, if it's a rehab, label it a fix and flip rehab. But if you're truly wholesaling, 90 days is a huge window. And I include my wholesales in that number. And that always keeps me out of trouble. Those aren't the ones that we're going to keep, but the ones we want to like dispose of and get rid of. So
let's clarify the keep you out of trouble thing for the audience. Are you saying because real estate doesn't turn over overnight, You're saying that if I can turn a property in 90 days, I really don't have much exposure to a market shift.
Correct. So if you look at the history of real estate, it takes time to adjust. It never happens overnight. And I remember going through 07, the writing was on the wall. 08, it hit. And the most frustrating time was from 08 till the end of 09. Because all these people, think about right now, all your acquisitions people, like they come to you with deals and they're talking about this guy wants, over Zillow and stuff like that. That news that the market's dropping takes time to lag to get to the customers. Back in the day, we just did absentee owners. That was like our bread and butter. They didn't get the news for like a year and a half. So like you had to tell them, listen. So we had to spend a lot of time on the nurturing and follow-up. And that's going to be the big shift, is whoever has the best nurturing and follow-up systems when the market adjusts. But listen, there's always a buyer for a property. There's always a buyer in an up market and a down market. So if we have buyers in an up market and a down market, the big play is if Wall Street pulls out, what's going to happen to the demand? And I think that's a little bit of the equation. And the other thing that really makes me a little bit nervous, Pace, is this whole like COVID thing and the government's involvement with property rights and stuff like that. So we experienced a few of them with our properties. And it was just like, we had people that we needed to evict that had nothing to do with COVID. And we had a local judge saying, I'm not signing any orders. And we had to set it aside. And it was just frustrating. Like, to me, it's like, how loose does it get? And I'm in a pretty conservative state in Florida. And we were battling a local judge here. And I couldn't pick up the property and move it. So I was stuck. So a little bit frustrating. If that was my only property, that would have been really frustrating. But, I just kind of took it. So my concern is what happens with Wall Street and what happens with property rights with governments in the future. Because how long have we been in a moratorium now? How long is that since the
18 months?
March? So if you had a guy who owned 10 properties and followed that business model, he's not getting paid on maybe half of them.
Yeah.
It's tough. So
for a lot of the audience, I don't think they know about what the banks are doing and their involvement in this whole entire thing. Cause they maybe are not as tied into it as you or we are. We've got a flip right now. It's really interesting. We flipped this house. We listed the house. This is a Jamil and Pace collaboration. We list it for $325. ARV's $300, right? But we're listing for $325. The market's freaking hot.
Mm-hmm.
We get an offer at $385. Okay. It's from one of the iBuyers. And we go, we don't want to sell to an iBuyer. We know you guys are going to beat us up basically right before close of escrow. And they come back 20 minutes later with an offer of $450,000, no contingencies, $5,000 non-refundable, all that stuff. And we're like, what are we missing? What are we missing? So this is an interesting thing. Jamila talked about this a couple of weeks ago, actually. This is what was interesting. Their play is not that individual house. Here's their play. They have been acquiring properties in that specific neighborhood for the last 5 years. And that house, them pushing that price on that one house, adjusts the price of all the other 15 homes within a stone's throw. So them buying that house $125,000 over asking price raised the price on all the other 15 homes. And we found that they made about $4 million in that transaction by raising the level of the other homes. Then we see them about a week later offloading 2 houses. So they raise the entire ship and they just let 2 of them out the back. Let 2 of them out the back.
What do they call that in the stock market? Pump and dump?
Pump and dump. And people are not watching this. People are not seeing this. And a lot of the demand that we're saying, and Rick, this is what you're specifically talking about, is that people are looking at it like, oh yeah, it's low interest rates and it's this and it's that, and that's the demand. Guys, banks are playing a major role in what's going on here. Wall Street is in a big part of what's going on here. And they could turn the switch off in one day and stop buying homes, or not in one day, but maybe in a 90 or 60, 180 day period. That could change the market as we know it dramatically.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, wholesaling's probably your best play when the market comes apart, because I will tell you, when I went through it last time, I was so buried in subject to financing opportunities I had to figure out as I was going along. And so I had, I probably done 1,500 properties over 19 years. I kind of did the math on it. And I had a 10,000 square foot waterfront property with a 250-foot dock, $2 million mortgage I bought for 307. And I had to sell it at auction because I was getting buried in the cost. It was a long story. I just didn't have the capital. I didn't learn my lessons with it. I still made like $100,000 on it, but I looked that property up like a year ago and showed Zach what the possibility, sold for over $2.5 million. And it was a 120-year-old property, had incredible historic history. And that one would have been great for the legacy. I also bought a hotel on the beach down in Hollywood, right next to one of the Trump Towers there. And I was buying it for $800,000. I had no idea what I was doing. I was young at the time. I got partners. We got hit with another hurricane, insurance claims, and I got backdoored with a buyer. Check this out. The City of Hollywood Fire Department bought it through a trust, and they strong-armed me and took me to court under the Community Redevelopment Act, where I had to keep the building historic. Yep. And I $50,000 with a lawyer, and I called it a day. I thought I was going to make millions, and I just didn't have the right legal team at the time. And long story short is I've learned through all these opportunities. I don't look at them. I used to get upset about them, and now I'm like, I can't wait for the next opportunity to come. So when it comes, it's great. I think we all got to stop trying to completely predict it. And I think by you guys informing numbers of what's going on with Wall Street, a little tip is if you guys in your local real estate area, the realtors, they have a local board and they actually file a report on all the listings, the DOM. Now it's 3 months behind in my area, but it's free data and it's great to watch because you can watch because it doesn't happen overnight. You'll start to see it slowly ticking up. So we watch for trends in Florida because we have a bit of a season here. So we're at the height of hurricane season. We have deals fall apart. Like right now, coming up in September, it's always a challenge on these properties. And I don't know about you, but in Florida, we're having a huge problem with insuring homes, especially new buyers. That they're canceling policies, and any older home near the water, they just won't even insure them anymore. And so a lot of self-financing deals are coming up because people don't know how to move these properties.
Right.
Can I ask you guys? Let me ask you guys both this question because I think it's really interesting as we start in this business. Our first step is get your first deal, right? Just do something, do your first deal, find that opportunity, get that first experience, cross that bridge from having faith that you can do this business to it becoming a fact. Now you're rinsing and repeating, right? Now you go to replacing your current job, right? So you can do this full time. And then you get into, okay, well, paying off some debts, or am I investing? All right. So you play that game too. And then you go, okay, I need to buy assets, right? I need to get assets so that I can get some cash flow, but I want to make sure that I'm also not getting caught at the wrong time where I've got a lot of assets and then something gets wiggly and something changes. Because I'm telling Rick, you're telling your story and I'm like, I'm right there with you, brother. I mean, some of these deals that I had locked up in 13 and 14 and 15, I mean, just absolutely incredible prices right now, right? But at the time, I was like, well, I want to just keep the money rolling. I just want to keep the cash coming in. I want to make sure that I'm building my company, doing it right. So when do you know? And by the way, this is the reason why I buy rental properties cash. This exact reason, Rick. One, because I don't like being a landlord. I'm going to be honest.
I hate it with a passion.
It's a nightmare for me to be a landlord. Number two, if the world melts, if everything melts, I don't have to worry about this property. You know what I mean? This property, I've got property taxes here in Phoenix aren't crazy. Insurance isn't crazy. Life's good, right? So that's a couple of my strategies there. But as now it's 2021, I'm seeing a lot of, Airbnb opportunities, and I'm seeing some apartment opportunities, and I'm seeing some other things. Like, when do you make that decision? Both of you guys, I'm just asking your guys' opinion on to buy an asset, one, real estate specifically, so that you can have that depreciation, but two, feel comfortable with it at the end of the day that it's not going to drag your mindset down because you're focused on this all the time and you're not sure what the government's going to do and if you can evict somebody or anything like that. How do you play both sides of it, right? How do you buy real estate to get depreciation, but then not get buried being a landlord, having that hanging over your head?
Well, you want me to take it first pace or you want to?
I've got a long answer for it, so let's let you go first.
Okay. So the good thing is after you see plenty of opportunities doing it 19 years, like, you know, when a really good deal like hits your plate. So it's all a balance. So I've got some of my best ideas directly from my accountant, because sometimes when a third party will look at your books and go, hey, Rick, this column right here, where did you get those deals from? That's how I figured out probates. He goes, man, you need to just do more of those. I go, I don't know how to do it. And that's how I got immersed in probates. He's like, go get like 20 of these. And so then I talked to my accountant. I go, man, the perfect world for me would be to have a place where my family could share it. I'd have an office so I'd never have to commute. I used to drive 100 miles each way to work, by the way, at Enterprise. Oh. And I could write the whole thing off. My accountant goes, when you find that, you let me know and we'll take it down. So I hunted. So in 2015, I had an opportunity come up. So I'm a boating guy. I love the water. That's why I'm in South Florida, my family first. But I love fishing. I love going to the islands. And so I had a deal come up in 2015 of a commercial building. It was a restaurant. And the builder kind of failed. The market was just coming back. And he's like, I got to move this thing like immediately. So I went in just for a wholesale opportunity. I go, well, I'll talk to you. And so I have a really good network. I'm here in Stuart, Florida, if anyone wants to know. And I put it under contract. I knew exactly who I was going to sell it to. And I started looking, and my wife goes, man, it'd just be really cool if like we could live in it. You could put the boats out back. You could fish. It was right in downtown, all the restaurants. They take care of the pools, the yacht club. I was like, So I brought a contractor by there and he gave me the bill. I was like, out of my league. I don't want this much headache. Sold it to my buddy, made a nice profit. He's like, I'll have it done in 6 months. This year, actually, the end of 2020, he came back to me. He's like, remember that property you sold me? I go, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm checked out. He goes, let's go meet over there. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to get a deal done. So me meeting with him within an hour and a half, I put it back under contract. He finished the entire renovation, spent over $1 million in the deal. And he's like, I go, it's got to be creative and it's got to be the same price. I'll give you 25 grand more than I sold it to you. And lo and behold, I took it over. It's a commercial building. It has 4 stories. It's the only one that has commercial use. So there's 4 commercial units. I bought the entire second floor. And I went to Zach. I go, we're going to make part of it our office, part of it our home. And I'm going to option like the rest of the building. And so I got like my dream one. I went to my accountant. He goes, I cannot believe you found this. I go, you put it in my head. So like when you start looking for stuff, you get it. And so basically in a short sentence, because I followed up on what Pace and Jerry did, Norton, is I did a triple net lease back from my company. Another company owned the asset. And it's like perfect. And here's the deal is I got offered to rent this thing per week for $5,000. And I said, no, man, like, this is it, man. This is it. I ain't giving it up, man. I've got 19 years searching for this. And now I have an option on 3 of the other units. And I pretty much control the comp. I took over as president of my building. It's fun though. Like when you see stuff like that, okay, that stands out. So with me, anything in South Florida with waterfront potential, I just take it down now. I don't even think about it because I've watched these values go up and it's incredible. And I spend the other part of the day with CPAs and accountants trying to figure out how not to give all my money away. But it's, I think they're going to change the corporate tax rate 24%. They were talking about like 28, which I don't think it'll ever pass, but And you got to be careful because you can chase that depreciation train, but it will take energy. It will take time. And sometimes you sit down and I pay the tax bill. Like sometimes you just got to pay it because you're only kicking the can down the road when you do it. So I look for really unique opportunities because when I was in the car business, like cars don't impress me. I could care less what you drive. It doesn't do anything for me. I'll never wear a jacket because I wore a monkey suit for 11 years. I don't want to do it. So I look for unique opportunities that have great tax advantages that fits my lifestyle and my business. I have no commute. You know what my car is? It's a golf cart. Like I just go downtown. I get like whatever I want. I come back. I go to the gym in the morning. I run in the evenings. And I'm 51, man. So my ideal is I go through my emails. I'll work out. I'll go fishing. I come back. Me and Zach have an hour-long conversation. We go over all the numbers and the KPIs. Sometimes we argue a little bit. And I let Zach run the company the way he needs to. I guess I operate more in a chairman's position just because that's what I want to do. So I have spent really the last 10 years with my kids developing them. And hopefully we can talk about that. Yeah. And now I'm in a position to do what like ever I want. Like if I want to go on camera more and spend more time. So with Zach's idea, he's like, Dad, you got so much knowledge. You should bring it to the table. And I said, everybody's out there teaching this stuff. There's so much noise out there. And you know what he said? I'll bring the biggest, loudest noise and we'll get it in front of there. I said, Zach, you're the future. You're it. Like you connect with the kids. They understand it. And what I love about the way Zach does it is he knows the fight. They just went through it. And sometimes 19 years removed, you forget what it's like to sit there and pound on cold calls and struggle like pricing comps and stuff like that. Back when I did comps, man, you actually had to go to a realtor and like beg them for it. Now, like we all hit a button. So, my job's to keep myself humble and keep Zach humble. And what better way? I get to spend every day with my kids, my son. So Zach lives like a mile down the road and he comes by and he's in charge. He sets up the studio and does everything. And we have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, you got to be careful with assets because there's a reason they're called ASS.
Yeah, for sure. So here's my quick answer to that. A couple of things. I do chase the depreciation train heavily. Right. So like even this last quarter, my CPA, Dustin Griffiths, I'd love to have him on the show, comes in and says, Pace, you need to buy another $5 million of real estate before the end of the year to do what you did last year, which was pay basically zero tax, right? I do pay myself through my S Corp a very small amount of money. And so of course I pay some employment tax and stuff like that. But through depreciation, what I've also learned through being around the right CPAs and Toby Mathis and Clint Coons, who've been on the show as well, teach you how to avoid the depreciation recapture entirely. It's no longer a kicking the can down the road. You can entirely avoid the tax depreciation recapture. So I do chase that. It is important for me. So the way I look at it is the money that I would have paid to the IRS is what goes into buying my real estate assets. But probably the most important advisor in my world is a gentleman from a company called the Information Market. Okay. It's a company we have locally. They are, what's the name of the report that the realtors kick out here? Cromford. So the Cromford report, which is what Rick was alluding to in his market, you guys get it like 3 months late. We get ours immediately. The Cromford report is like right now, immediate data for the last 30 days, which is pretty cool. That data comes from a company called the Information Market. You guys can look them up. It's the actual name of the company. I've become friends with these people. So what they've done is they've done stress tests on people who have assets. You can go to them and say, let me stress my assets. I want to see what happens if you do a simulation of 2008 on all of my holdings in Maricopa County, what happens over an 18-month period with average people not paying, what happened to the rent rates, what happens to how much cash you need to have as a reserve, what happens in an 18-month time frame. Can you hold on, right? So those are important conversations you guys need to have when you're going out and holding assets. Worst case scenario, what does your stress test tell you? That's really, really important. Second thing is that you don't want to go out and just buy anything. You want to stay in affordable housing, right? Rick made a really good point on freaking condos right now. You can make $100,000 on a fix and flip right now because it's kind of the last frontier as far as affordable housing goes. But guess what? Guess what is the actual last frontier with affordable housing? Mobile home parks.
So we've done that too. So
mobile home parks. It's the last frontier. People, and then here's part of the stress test that you'll go through if you call the information market and you go, hey, okay, here's all 200 doors that I have. I want you to stress test all of these based on the data that happened in 2018 over that 18-month decline and ultimately hitting that bottom. What does that look like? Here's what happened. People started moving in with each other, right? Families started abandoning their rentals. It's not that people stopped paying their rentals. Or like entire families. It was that a brother and a sister who might have been living separate go, you know what? Only one of us needs a place. Let's move in together, right? Mm-hmm. And where do they move? They move to the most affordable house. And so you look back and you see the data. What was happening is people were leaving these homes vacant because they were moving in with each other. So that's part of the stress test too, is that data that the information market will allow your assets to go through. Guys, it is critical. So when we buy stuff based on only allowing the information market to stress our entire portfolio and go through that test. So super important. I'd love to have the information market to come on Wholesale Hotline, maybe Brent at some point.
Let's do it. Hell
Another thing,
sure.
If you look at a lot of the guys that were buying subject to and not seller finance, but subject to back in 2005, 6, 7, and 8, they were not acquiring fixed rate mortgages. The majority of the mortgages that they were acquiring through subject to were adjustable rate mortgages. So like guys like Eric Sage, who are a good friend of the show, phenomenal real estate investor. All of the buddies of ours here locally in Arizona, the ones that went belly up on their rentals, they were the ones that couldn't physically hold on because the adjustable rate mortgages went up and the rent rate took a little bit of a dip. That gap is what made everybody hemorrhage cash, and they couldn't hold their properties. Meanwhile, you go back.
I gave back 5, Pace.
Yeah, I believe it.
5 of them. Yep.
Or the adjustable rates.
Exact reason.
Yeah, adjustable rates. And we have a buddy here local that had like 65 of his like 75 properties were adjustable rates. He got slaughtered through that, right? But nowadays, how many adjustable rate mortgages do we actually see? Right? They don't really exist. Now, if you were able to hold on and you had fixed rate and you had stress test your assets, look what Rick had on that 250-foot dock part, that deal you had for $307,000 that ultimately went back to $2.5 million.
That's the other side, right? That's the other side.
I thought I was killing it like at 100 grand, but it was, I just, you learn as you go through this business. So it's like, to me, it's the whole thing is I love watching people get excited, like get their first deal, get the light bulb going, because it's the shift they need to get out of the culture that we teach here. I mean, I was never taught financial freedom by anyone. I had to go out and get it on my own. And then part of my legacy was when Zach engaged me and we did some things, which we'll talk about, is I go, man, I can make, this can be like, I was just blown away. I'm like, he's really taking in the information. And from 17 on, I said, Zach, you can have to start your kid at like 3. And so I love this business, man. I can sit here and talk about it all day. I know a lot of people in the business, so I'm not on camera as much and stuff like that, just because I love running a wholesale business. And it is a balance between coaching and doing what you love. But I don't doubt you guys for a moment. I do question people who just, 3 months in the business and they got this up and coming coaching program. I'm like,
oh yeah, we see it all the time.
I can always learn from everybody. Like you can never stop learning. At 51, I voraciously read everything I can. I try to stay on top of the business. And I just feel like if you're relative, like what I learned back in 03, 04, a lot of stuff doesn't even work anymore. Like, so if you get out of the business too far, so we all have to stay in tune. And that's part of like me and Zach's deal, is just like, just be in the business. If you love it. I heard a coach once tell me, he goes, I just hate this business. I'll do anything to get out of it. I'm like, dude, you can do anything you want in life. Like, do what you want to do. I did the miserable job for 11 years. I'm done doing that.
Yeah.
And I love this business. I love talking to people.
Yeah, I do have a question for you because Daniel
Yeah.
Robbins brings up, I've thrown this on the screen. Pace is doing a high schooler training program soon. Okay. And this is what we talked about before the beginning of the show.
Okay.
You have done a phenomenal job with guiding your son, right? Being his mentor, and guiding him in the right direction. Now, it's not just the very on the nose trainings that you've given. Like, okay, no, that I see how you comp that, Zach, but we actually need to comp it this way. That's very on the nose, very specific. But there's other things that you've brought him up with, like, no, don't spend your money on that. Or, hey, we need to get up early. We need to go over and do this. Or, hey, we need to stop by our projects. There's all the physical things that people don't get to learn because they don't have a parent that's in the business, right?
Mhm.
So in essence, I am in the position right now that you were in with your son. And so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, my son has expressed insane interest in this. Do I push him that direction? And if I do, what's the first lesson? Where do you start? How do you build a foundation so that you can start compounding and building up there? If you had 1 hour to teach 14-year-old Zach, here's 1 hour I'm going to give you as my first lesson, what would that lesson be based on?
Okay. So, and now I'm speaking as a dad first. Okay.
Of course.
Because we have to balance that. So every kids have different levels of maturity. It sounds like your kid's ahead of the curve, by the way, because Zach wasn't doing that when I started. So Zach went out and he always wanted to make money. And so I constantly took him by a property. Listen, I was a one-man operation for 7 years. I full disclosure. I did everything. And I go, I got to stop by this house real quick. And the kids would always roll their eyes like, my daughter's like, you're going to take me by that abandoned, nasty house. Zach used to go and he had this obsession. Like every house we had in Florida had golf balls. So he'd pick up the golf balls. He'd put them on eBay. He's like, Dad, I made $10 and made $20. I go, that's cute. And he just looked at me like, why would you say that? I go, son, you're missing the point. Like, what did Dad go by there for? He goes, so he didn't understand if I was a realtor. Actually, all my kids' parents are like, we don't even know what you do. Like, you in the garbage business, what's your deal? I'm like, he goes, because when you say you do real estate, 95% of the public thinks you're a realtor.
Yep.
And so if you've done this long enough, trying to explain people wholesaling that have no clue of it, it's just it's a wasted space. So the first thing I did when Zach, he was always interested in sports. He did basketball. I said, son, there's no future in basketball with you. I love you to death, but you got 2 left feet. And I said, let's go by the high school and we'll, so they had like an open night. Let's look at some sports activities. There's 2 sports I looked at specifically. He wasn't ready for football, and I had way too many concussions because I was a reckless kid in high school. Okay. And the rules were different back then. I like cross country because kids can push their pace and it doesn't matter their level, and it's hard mentally. And number 2, I got pulled off the football team to do wrestling. Now, the wrestling coach, he goes, you want to, like, let me teach you how to be a man. I'm like, how bad can it be? I didn't have a father present in my life at the time. I was a terrible wrestler, just for the record. I didn't understand it. Like, I would get so upset when I lost. I was immature. Fast forward, I'm telling my wife, I want to get Zach in the wrestling. I think it's a good foundation because every time I struggled anything in real estate, I would think back, what was harder than going out on that mat or getting pounded out on that football field? Like, oh, it's not harder. They can't hurt me. So I already met with the coach in advance. I'm not sure if Zach knows that, but he signed up. He's like, hey, I'll go do it. His mother was not happy. My baby, got to protect him. And so what I'm trying to instill in him was discipline. It had nothing to do with like the physicality, but it was good for him. And Zach learned quickly that these kids were like, there was some kids wrestling since they were 6 or 7. He's like, oh my God. I said, son, work on the one thing that you can. You got to do the discipline. You got to put in the time. And so he learned that. Then I took him to the weight room and I trained with him for about 6 months. And he started getting strong. And something happened. His confidence just started like lifting. This is the same analogy as you teach real estate. I was teaching real estate. I was just using a vehicle that he was passionate about. And long story short, when he went through wrestling, his first few matches, I'm like, just try not to get pinned. That's it. That's your job, right? Like, don't write a bad contract. And then after that, I'm like, try to get some escape points. Just try to get out. And then after a while, I go, let's get some points on offense. And let me tell you, a year after that, that kid took wrestling to like the next level. The amount of training and stuff you have to do with it. So what happened is I stopped pushing him, and he just started like, he would go to the other local high school's camp because those kids were better. I go, you got to find better kids to wrestle. And he'd find better kids to wrestle. And then he'd go to travel.
How many stinking parallels are there with real estate and wrestling? This is interesting. I had no idea.
So listen, I could talk wrestling all day because I love it. So if you guys ever want to look up Russell Brunson, which runs ClickFunnels, has a great analogy. He's got his own wrestling room. Now, he was a state qualifier wrestler, went through college, and he does the same analogy in his business. And wrestling's one of those sports that you're truly out there on an island. And that's how it is as a wholesaler. Like, we are out there. It's like you get your teeth kicked in. I remember when I used to have a deal, I was banking on everything, making that 20 or 30 grand when I didn't have a lot of deals. And then when that deal got taken away, you're like, ah. And so when Zach got beat, we'd sit down, we would talk, and he had the maturity to get through. When he lost, I'm like, this is how you learn. And lo and behold, by his second, third year, he had fun with it. And then he was doing his job while he did that. And then conversations come up. Oh, it's tough. I'm injured. And we talk about, what's painful, what's injury. And then that's when he's like, Dad, I just hate the job I do. I go, what do you like? He goes, well, I like wrestling. I like this. And he goes, I want to know how you do it. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, how do you spend so much time with me? And I'm like, right there. That's when the light bulb went off. And so what I did is I had a library at the time. We didn't have electronic books. And I gave him 2 books to read. And I said, just read it. And the quality of your questions will dictate where we go from this.
What book?
Now, one or two ways. When he could read the book, he could take it, and like a lot of kids just take it and never read it. And I wanted to see what action he takes. So I gave him the old Peter Conti, David Finkel creative financing book, because it really churns like, so it's a well-written book. It's just easy to read, and it shows you the creative opportunity. And then I had him read Dolph DeRuss's Real Estate Riches.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he walked through. And so I purposely put books that you could read in like a day or two. The kid came back and like the next day, and he just writing down questions and questions like, wow. And I was like, okay, let's do something with this. I said, what do you want to do? He's like, well, how can I talk to these we got to go find motivated sellers now, Dad. I go, well, here's the deal. I used to do bandit signs. I haven't done them in a while, but they work, but you got to answer the phone. You got to go through a script. So I made him go out and buy his own bandit signs. And we would go out during wrestling tournaments. And so when we traveled, we would go out and he would stick out like 50 signs. And his mother made sure I didn't get him run over on the road. And he would stick them out there and he answered the phone. Now, I used to say, Zach, you got to practice your script. I got it, Dad. Don't worry about it. I got it. And just to watch your kid get beat up on the phone, it takes a lot just to sit back, but you got to let him make the mistakes. And then he comes, he's like, Dad, it's like they keep hanging up on me. I go, listen, you only need one. Like 9 out of 10 are not going to be good deals, and just go through them. And then about day 4 in the putting the signs, he got a call. He's like, hey, this guy, he's like, he just wants to dump it. He needs to go out of town. I don't know what to do. I go, get him on the phone. I didn't want to waste time. So I got him on the phone. He said everything again. I'm like, okay. Zach goes, well, I'm going to go get the deal done. I said, you're not old enough. We got to do this like legally. So I went with him and we rehearsed in the car, and Zach went. And to be honest with you, he didn't really say much. Like, everybody thinks wholesaling is this like magic, like there's this slick sales thing. Honestly, it's just talking to people. Yep. And I said, Zach, just ask him what he wants for the property, discount it once or twice, and get the deal signed. He's going to sign it right there. And Zach was so nervous. And after we signed the contract, he just it was like a father-son moment. You can't even, like, the light bulb went off. He's like, that the rest is history. I don't even tell you what happened after there. He was loading the entire garage up with bandit signs, and he's like, "What about this cold calling thing, Dad?" Now, for the record, I'm not a cold call guy. I go, I'd rather beat my head against the wall. It's just, I guess I was just too old. And he goes, I'm going to give it a shot. I knock yourself out. And I just help him with the list and gave him guidance. And he was an animal. Like I'm talking like regular phone before we did Mojo or anything. And he just called. And when I saw he had the tenacity to go through cold calls, and he's like, it can't be worse than anything you do on a wrestling mat with me. And I think wrestling taught the discipline and the training, but there always comes a point in sports. And the analogy is when you start like pushing yourself harder than even what your coaches kind of do. Like he had to go seek outside help past his initial coaches his last junior and senior year. But he was the brightest kid on his wrestling team by far. The coach is like, guys, we need a 2.0 to keep the team intact. Like, Zach, you're ignored out of this conversation because he always had like a 4.0. Like, Zach, you're the smartest wrestler out there. And to this day, this friends are always like, what's this wholesaling thing you're doing? And so I spent a lot of time from really 14 to like 17 while I was in high school. And at 17's when the real bells went off. But for 3 years, I used wrestling as the ultimate teaching tool. It doesn't have to be wrestling. I like cross country because kids can just challenge yourself. So many of our kids these days, they don't push themselves. And wholesaling, subject to any of it, you got to push yourself, man. Like everybody's showing these jackets and these Lamborghinis, guys. It is work, but the reward it's incredible. I spend so much time with my family. I think I drive them nuts. They're like, go out in a boat, go do something. So I go for deep relationships. It's what I do. And so like when people come to Florida me here, like, let's go on the boat, let's talk real estate for a day. And then let's just go out on the boat, whatever you want to do. And I show them Florida. And so I'm trying to create like this ultimate playground where everybody can come to like one place. And then I have options. So it's
Rick, what was the second book? I know the Peter Conti book. It was a book back in like 2003 or 2004. It's a creative finance book, Peter Conti. I gave it to everybody in the side chat. What's the second book you gave?
Dolph DeRoos, Real Estate Riches.
Oh, Dolph.
Yes.
He's great. We just filmed something with him.
Riches, baby.
Really.
Brent Jamil and I just hung out with him in Florida.
Yeah, great, just great read. It's simple, and he did it when he was a really young guy too. But he just talks about he'd buy churches and he would buy small apartment buildings, and he wanted to do everything like creatively, and that's what kind of opened up my mind. I go, he can do it. Now here's the other book I picked up when I was 18 or 19. I couldn't wrap my head around the support. I picked it up at a garage sale. I think I paid like $5 for it. And it's Tony Robbins' UPW. The book's like this thick. It was the only book past high school that I could read head to toe. I think it was like 565 pages. I'm just like, it was like, I'm like, this is amazing. But he got me excited, but tried to execute it. To be honest, it took me 20 years to really execute that point. And it took time because I let everybody else influence what I do. And I just wasn't ready for it at the time. Now, I think Tony Robbins is probably the greatest communicator on the planet. He really knows how to read people. And that's what we do in wholesaling. We read people, we help them out, and we make it a win-win situation. So my legacy is passing it down to my kids and just having fun. Just having fun with it. So like everything I do, like me and Zach, we just have fun. Like we screw around, we have a good time, but we know when to get down to business. And here's the real secret, guys. Listen to this. I learned as much from my son as he learns from me. Because you have to be open. Like he tells me stuff that's going on. I'm like, he's so dialed in. And like I learn. I'm like, okay, I didn't know it. So like the old days of just kind of getting, like I was taught, get a podcast, get a voice out there, talk to everybody, get a Facebook page. This kid studies social media like He just loves it. So like, I know today he went on like a 3-hour cold calling marathon. He's just like ripping through and he's like, hey dad, here's 3 addresses. You might want to follow up with these people. I think they're ready to go. And I'm having a good time working with them. And in my opinion, from 14 to 25 is when you really got to hold your kids tight. We're so used to holding our kids so tight from 0 to 14. And the reality is, you think pushing these kids to college and then just letting them go get a job and move on with their life, they're going to be disappointed. I was terribly disappointed out of college. The only thing I learned was like the gift of gab to talk to people, because I spent so much time talking to my teachers on how to get out of detention or how to get out of an assignment. So what I would do, Pace, is I think your son's already like well ahead of it, is you find analogies that they can work with. And then when the question comes back to you, then that's when they learn. So many times we lecture to our kids. Here's the bottom line, guys. Your kids watch what you do more than what you say.
Yep.
End of story. So if you tell your kids not to drink and you drink, guess what? You can't tell your kids to eat good and you drive them through McDonald's. Okay. You can't teach them financial freedom by just, doing a regular 9-to-5 job and getting by. I don't knock it. Like 95% of the world does it. I just want to change it. So when I went through my daughter with her education, we did an ROI study. Like, okay, how much is it going to cost? And I said, you know what your biggest cost is? It's housing. Do you want to spend 50 grand on housing and get a student loan? She's like, no. Okay, if you do this and this, you're welcome to stay here. Let's keep going. I need someone to take care of me when I'm old. I'm already old anyway, so it's
I love that thing about, they watch what you say way more or they watch what you do way more than what they hear you say. I was driving around with my dad, young guy. I was probably 10. My dad I grew up in a contractor's household. So what did I do if I needed to make money? My dad took me out on job sites, right? So I learned how to work with my hands. And I remember my dad saying to me, he said, son, you need to buy real estate. The real estate is the way to go because they're not making any more of it, right? He said, buy land. They're not making any more of it, which turned out to be a famous quote. I always thought my dad was the one that said that.
He did it.
I was like, damn, my dad is so smart. My dad is so smart. And it stuck with me. And here's why it stuck with me is because as I went into my 20s, I didn't get into real estate. I got into construction because no matter what my dad told me to do, I watched what my dad did and I watched my dad work with his hands. And here my dad still is in his 60s in construction. And now comes to me and is like, how are you in real estate? How are you in real estate? How are you doing this? How are you doing this? How are you doing this? And I'm like, so guys, you have to practice what you preach. If you want your kids if you want to leave a legacy behind, you can't just tell your kids don't eat McDonald's and then you're eating McDonald's. That's a great analogy. You got to do the work. Doesn't even matter. You don't need 100 house portfolio, even if it's 1 or 2 units, or maybe it's wholesaling, 3 or 4 deals a year to offset some of your 9-to-5 income, whatever. You can't tell your kids to get into real estate and you can't leave a legacy behind if you're stuck doing it yourself. In my personal opinion, it's tough.
So that's what I try to program. So it's funny, like when, I don't believe like you guys are really good about it. Is it people showing like all their flashy stuff? Like I told you, cars don't impress me. Now boats impress me because
I got a pretty dope Prius. Are you excited about Priuses or no?
Yeah, why not? Why not? So it's, but like when people come to my house, they're like, I've never seen anything like it. I go, that's what I want right there. So I have like 200 feet of glass on one side, like almost like a Miami Vice deal. But I didn't go on MLS and find the deal. It was 19 years of training. I said, I owned this back in 2015. I let somebody else put in the work. They hit hard times. They're like, I know you got money. I knew that. And I did I sat down and got as creative as you can possibly get. Like I had every back door built into it. He's like, okay, I need X amount of cash now and I'll work with you on whatever. And I had to solve a lot of problems. It used to be a restaurant, for God's sakes. It was never meant for what it's what, because it was zoned commercial mixed use. I sat down with my team and they're like, yeah, you can do it. I've never heard anybody doing this. I'm like, great. Let's get the unit above us Let's get to the one to the side. And, I don't know. I have a staff of 4 and we're virtual. So like, I don't need it. I just want to control my neighbors. Like is that crazy? Like I want to buy it and then pick my neighbor out. And so if you guys are ever moving to Florida, let me know. But it's, I wake up to a cup of coffee. I've got this beautiful marina. I got the water. I'm 5 minutes from the ocean. And I love the fish like year round, man. It's just fun, but it's, so it took us 19 years to get to the journey. And when I told my wife we're going to do this, she's like, let's just go for it. And when I sold my house, the market was so crazy. I sold it without a appraisal contingency. And like, they're like, it's never going to appraise. I'm like, I don't care. You offer me that amount, that's what you're going to pay. And we got it to go through after some jostling on it. But like the biggest tip we do in Florida right now is on all my deals, we waive the appraisal contingency on everything, unless it's really, really bottom end, like housing. But I don't really do FHA. I don't need to. I haven't done FHA in 3 years now. The market's been so good.
Brent, do you have, going back to legacy, you opened it up with legacy, and Rick talked a lot about what he's been doing, and not just with his son, but also with his daughter. But how do you look at the whole legacy thing, right? How do you look at that for your sons and your family? Are you thinking my sons have got to be in real estate? It's real estate or hell, come hell or high water type of thing. What are you looking at on the legacy side of things regarding real estate?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in my house, you do real estate. No, honestly, Pace, thank you. I've just been sitting back and digesting, and I think it's really important. Pace, we've been at meetups, we've been at RIAs, we've been at things where people bring their young kids, and their kids look like they don't want to be there. They don't have any stars in their eyes about it. And then you see kids that are really enjoying this. They really like what's going on, and they're really interested in it. So I think if Bo is interested, and he's 4, so who knows, then yeah, I'd love that. That would be incredible. He talks about it now, but who knows when he's 14, 15, 17, he might want to be a rock star. He might want to be a doctor or something. Doubt it. But something else. I mean, it just depends on what he wants to do. I don't think that, you just put him into a box and say you have to do this type of thing. I think what Rick said, which really struck a chord with me, both off the air and during this last 73 minutes, is when they start asking you questions about what you do and how you do it, and they're interested in it, and now they want to read the books that you have on the shelves in your house, and they see you reading at night and going through things and breaking down deals and getting excited about opportunities, and you're always around them. Like you walk them to school, you pick them up from school, you're gone all weekends with them. Like all of these things are going to affect. So legacy wise, the legacy is number one, that they're wildly loved. And that's what I really want. Number one, that and this whole community, but just in the family, that they're wildly loved unconditionally. And 2, that I'm going to support. Right. There's two times, right? There's the times where they're leaning on you, and then the times when they're lifting you up. Right. And Rick was just saying, I'm getting old. I need somebody to take care of. But essentially, that's already happening. That metamorphosis from, getting leaned on and being the coach and helping them out, all of a sudden starts flipping, and the student becomes the teacher. And that's what's really exciting. And I really look forward to that. And I'm very open to that as well, because I think that that's the natural progression of a really strong father relationship. I've seen that with my own dad. I've seen him walk around and be a magnet, and I always thought that was great. So I emulated that, and I really thought that was really cool. And so I think that that's the legacy. That's the legacy from our fathers. That's the legacy that we put out there, is how can we teach our kids to go out in service of others and be happy doing it, and not feel depressed and boxed in and in a dark place mentally, that they can feel free to be happy and be creative and be excited. I think that's the legacy, Pace.
I love that answer. One, I know your parents, I know them. I see how much they are deeply love you. And going back to the podcast that we had with you, where we uncovered, your origin story, talking about how your father wasn't there, your biological father wasn't there, but your father now adopted you, and just wholeheartedly, he's probably the top 10 most loving human beings I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that is a major legacy, right? Regardless of real estate. And then I love what Rick talked about is like, you're sitting here teaching your son wrestling. You think from the outside, people are thinking, okay, you're teaching your kid how to wrestle. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? You're teaching him discipline. You're teaching him, how to put up with something when you lose, how to get bumped in the face, how to deal confidence.
The best teaching moments are when, things went wrong. Like there were times where he get real confident in a tournament, and, confidence, sometimes it can turn into something more, and someone takes advantage of you. And he turned around like, I can't believe I lost. I sit down. I go, you didn't, the fundamentals. What do you need to do? You got to break your guy down. And you just started taking wild shots. And some of the best, the most connecting times you have in your kids when they feel defeat, or they feel like, man, that hurt. And I always looked at sports. It was just, I just wish somebody taught me through sports, because there's so many great lessons you can learn. The discipline, how to deal with defeat, how everything is a defeat is a learning moment. It is in wholesaling. You have to make it, because in the beginning I used to let stuff hang on me, and now I just kind of let it go. Like I've lost plenty of money on deals. I just move on. I've had partners take half the business like overnight on me. I've had a lot of things happen, and everything has taught me to this point. So it's led me to this legacy. So now I'm in this position working with my son. He's reinvigorated. I always did flip with Rick, but I gotta be honest with you, I felt there were so many coaches in the space and it was getting watered down. I've always done really well wholesaling. Like I just love the art of a deal. And sometimes I'm not my best coach. And so when I taught Zach, I learned a lot. Like, and by the way, guys, I gave him such basic fundamental steps. It was an eye opener for me. Here's the bandit sign. Here's the markers you put out. Here's the script. Practice. Go for it. And then you got to watch the response. And either one or two ways, they're like, that was a blast. Or they come back, man, I got my butt kicked. Is it like this every time? And he just wanted more and more. And so now we're in a position where, like, I'm at 51 and I want to learn as much as I can. I feel like I've been behind it. Like starting at 33 is like behind the time. So now I've given Zach, he's earned it. If he wants the company to go in a direction, he can take it. He's finding the talented people to work for us. He's doing deals with guys in Arizona. Like I would have never done that. It's just,
I think he sold a couple of deals for us in Port St. Louis at so it's 6-7 months ago.
Fortunate enough to network around. So now I'm working on, like, I got a marina next door and I've got it in the ground level because I want to buy all my extra own boat slips and my wave runners. And so I'm looking for deals that add an extra zero. You only get like 2 or 3 a year. And now I can go out and search these. I spend time at the city meetings figuring out planning, developing. So it's like reinvigorated my real estate excitement. And I'm basically a chairman. Zach runs it how it sees fit. And like, he'll bring me, hey, we got these 4 deals. This is what's going on. I'm just like, and so like when we lose a deal, every now and then he's like, oh, we lost this deal. I'm like, hey, dude, we're good. Remember wrestling? Let's just go back. Let's get some more repetitions in. Let's get some more leads in and let's just work through it. It just wasn't meant to be. And now I used to throw a temper tantrum when I lose a deal. Now it's like, how can we get more, Zach? How can we get more? And I'm a huge idea guy. I get excited. I bury myself in it. Zach's a better executor than me. And so we've kind of blended those talents. And, we have tense moments like any other business does and with family, but, we always have each other's back. And he's having a lot of fun with what he's doing. And he's like, you're like a walking encyclopedia, Dad. I'm like, and I don't even know like some of the stuff I know. Like sometimes I'm put under pressure to like, how did you come up with that? I go, I've been around the block enough times. I just, I enjoy it. So, but he's taught me.
Rick, speaking about coming up, being around the block, Kimberly, have you been paying attention to the chat, by the way?
A little bit. I'm watching. Oh, yeah, it's cool.
So we've probably got a good 100, maybe 150 comments, really similar to Kimberlyn George, saying this conversation is so awesome and real. A lot of people saying, I can't wait to take this conversation to go hiking and re-listen to this episode. A lot of people have really loved this episode. So thank you so much for coming. We've got another 10 minutes before we wrap up the show.
Pace, real quick, Pace.
Yeah.
Just talk, because you're in this position now. You're in Rick's position, like now, maybe a little bit earlier in the age of your son. What is he interested in? Is he loves going around with you? He loves going to these deals. Is he understanding the numbers of it? Is it like he wants to do it so he could buy stuff to impress girls? Or is he doing it because he's just like, I want to bond with my dad? Like what's going through his head?
I think it's the solution solving part of everybody's brain is heightened with him. And so for him, he doesn't spend any money. You know, he's 13 years old. He's got like $4,000 saved up already. Right. And this is from like birthdays, $10 here, $10 there. Hey, Asher, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you babysit tonight for mom and dad. We're going to pay you $10. Like literally that small amount of money, his entire life has been, I don't think the kid has ever spent any money. So he's got cash. He doesn't care about it, spending it. He's very unique in the sense that we'll ask him, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? And we've gone multiple Christmases and multiple birthdays where he doesn't get anything. And what he wants is he's like, oh, I want a book. Like he asked us to read a book or buy a book the other day, Stephen R. Covey's Habits for Teenagers, right? And he read it twice. And he's like, I don't quite understand everything in it. There's a lot of words I have to like go and look up. But he's interested in something because he sees what we're able to do, right? We can go travel, we can go do things, we can go buy a property. But I think the big thing for him, he's a kind of a softie, right? So I've taken Asher on appointments with me, not out of choice, but out of necessity. I'm sure Rick, it's been the same for you, is like, you're out in the field, you get a lead from a, direct mail or PPC or whatever. You got to go meet that seller. Let's say the seller's like, I'm ready to go right now. You take your son. I don't care how old your son is, 6, 7, 8 years old. You go on a buy appointment. And when my son then goes and sees that we own the title company that closed the transaction, and he gets to go meet the girls there that love him and treat him well, and he gets to see the check from the appointment that we went to 2 months prior, and then the seller walk into the same title company giving me a hug saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's the part that I think Asher is addicted to, or at least intrigued by at this point of how can I help solve these problems, right? He's got something in his brain of like, I want to solve a problem. I want to solve a problem. I think Zach has that to a very high degree as well. Here's a problem. How do I execute it? How do I solve it as fast and efficiently as possible? And I think Asher's got that. So, there's people on my Instagram post. I left a post about a week ago where I said, I want to show my son how to get into this and get him his first deal. And ultimately see if you can you help a kid that's interested in real estate? Can you help them before they leave real estate or before they leave high school to, have enough cash flowing assets on their own? And I got a lot of comments. People are like, let him be a kid. 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 And I'm like, wow, isn't that so interesting? On one side, you tell people, don't let your kids play games. Don't let your kids this. Get your kids working hard. Get your kids working hard. I had no effing choice when I was a child. My parents had 12 children. Do you think my dad gave me a choice to sit on my ass and play video games? Are you effing kidding me? Saturday was not a hangout day. Sunday was not a hangout day. It was 7 days a mother freaking week. Every single week. There was no choice. I'm sorry. There just wasn't. The world. So the people that make those comments of let your kid be a kid, I get it. I get where they're coming from, but I didn't have the choice. My dad, whether he paid me $20 for a whole day or he didn't pay me $20 for a whole day, my dad says, you're coming with me today. You're going to you're going to cover the carpet with plastic and tape because I've got to paint these walls.
Yeah. So I purposely, like, I'm the best handyman. Like I grew up with my father not being around, so I had to fix everything for my mom. I purposely taught Zach not how to do handyman stuff. So he goes, oh, I go, get away from that. Like, get away from that switch.
Such a
Don't
great
touch
point.
it.
Yes,
And
I love that. Bro,
he goes, Dad, why are you going
got
to teach
stuck.
me to? I go, you ain't going to make any money with a hammer and a screwdriver.
No, I got stuck. And so many people told me in my 20s, they go, oh, you have this tremendous advantage because you've been a contractor and you've flipped over 7,000 homes and And I'm like, I was in a prison of this world of learning how to work by my hands. I was addicted to this skill I learned. Now, the thing that's good, same thing with you, Rick. Let's say real estate is obliterated, and there's no possible way you can do real estate, which I can't imagine a world that exists, but let's just say it does. The good thing is that Rick can go out and work with his hands and get some shit done and make some money. Same thing with me. I guess at the end of the day, there is some advantage to that, but I'm telling you, it held me up for 10 years learning how to work with my hands.
It held me up longer than that. And listen, the old verbiage is you can always go back to what's there. So why don't you try to change your life now? And before we end the show, when Zach was 17, I made him document his journey of doing his first, I believe, 3 wholesale deals. So he wrote a book, Real Estate Riches. I'll send you the link to it. It's absolutely free.
Put in the link right now. Put in the comments. Let's get everybody.
I got to get it. See, I'm not the tech guy, so you're asking the wrong guy.
Is Zach's not there right now?
What's that?
Is Zach not there right now?
He's in the other room. I got to go get him. But let me knock on the door. But it's like a 66-page ebook, and I made him write it in his own words as a kid. I go, you never get this moment back.
Yeah, I love it.
And when we did it, I had him sell it. He made about $2,000 off it. I go, then we're going to give it away for free. And it's his journey. It's such basic steps. And I'll grab him right now and get that. But don't
grab him. What we'll do, we'll wrap it up. You send it over to us, and we'll put it in the Wholesale Hotline Facebook group. So not only everybody on the live show gets it, but everybody in the Facebook group gets it as well.
Yeah, it's like a 40-minute read, and it's perfect for that 14, 15-year-old kid. And then if you get them to the next level of books, like I like Dolph the Roos. I like books that not too complicated, that can get their mind exploring. And did I force Zach into it? No, but Zach is a good kid. You know, I got kind of lucky, and I told him all the mistakes I ever made in life. And he just goes, until this day, he still tells me, why do you do this? And I have to answer to it. I go, I don't know. I weighed 230 for like most of my life. I got down to 215. I think I was slim. And during COVID, we got bored. I cut down to like 175. I just because I had this governor in my head. And I'm like, dude, I'm 51. I'm taking care of 2 of my elderly parents. And I'm like, I got to get a head start, man. I'm doing this for the next 40 years.
Right.
So that's my legacy. I want to be here. I want to see how my grandkids do. And listen, we all just want our kids to be happy. But we have to give them a financial education on how the world works. And college is for some, but it was never good I knew it wasn't good for me when I went to it. But listen, I had a good time. But college shouldn't be the best years of your life, especially now. And Zach subscribed to that theory, and that's where he's in the position right now. So I am more of the student now. And what better way than to spend every day working like with your kids? There's nothing better. And he has this energy I used to have when I was 33. And so I go to work out with him. I can barely still bench press him, but I think I'm going to lose it this month. I really think I'm going to lose it.
So we work out
together. Oh God. It's like everything hurts a little bit more when you're 50. It's a little bit more work, but it's like a use it or lose it. And I love this business because you can cater it to your lifestyle. You can get completely financially free. And I love it. And all Zach's friends are like, I don't understand what you do. I said, Zach, don't explain it to him. Just invite him in on like your free stuff and see if they go from there. So I think you're definitely on the right course. If you ever want to do anything with like a kid type of thing, I'd love to involve Zach or myself, anything that we can help just open people's eyes. Because it's a real simple conversation. It's like when you take a kid fishing, you just want to catch them a fish real quick and be done with it. They don't want to sit out there 5 hours, like in the hot sun, getting seasick. That's what my dad did to me. And, you were exposed to a lot of the stuff. So we just have to excite them about, what their possibilities are. And my parents had the wrong blueprint for me. It wasn't their fault. It just was it. So I woke up at 33, and for brutal honesty, it took me 10 years to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Now, I'm locked and loaded, man. I'm having a good time. And coming out of COVID, like Zach's, he's on his own. I concentrate on my daughter. And then I got nothing but time. Like I want to do a lot of traveling, go around. I've got this thing set up where I can lock up the building, and I got other people do it. And I just want to have fun, man. I love this business, man.
Well, check this out. Hamilton says on the screen, I feel like this Wholesale Hotline episode is a father conversation talk about involving, growing, and seeking your passion. Thank you, coaches. And I feel the same way. It's like, guys, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you love on Rick and Zach Ginn. And go back and watch Zach's episode. It was amazing. Really, really great episode. What we'll do is we'll take Zach's book, the 66-page book, and we'll put that in Wholesale Hotline's Facebook group so you guys can get access to that free book. Give that to your kids. Absolutely give that to your kids so they can see the first 2 deals or the first 3 deals he did?
First 3 deals, and then he goes on what he would do that. And he was just turning 17 when he did it. And he was traveling. We're doing wrestling tournaments. And he's like, hey, there's a new market. Let's test it out. I'm like, okay. And I was like blown away with I was like, man, why didn't I do this? And sometimes we think we know it all, and you guys can learn so much from your kids. They ask their questions, man. When they get a book, they're like, Dad, I don't understand why you do it like this. And sometimes he goes, why do you do it? I go, I don't know, because that's how I was taught.
Yeah.
So you guys always have to be open to learning. I'm at 51. I study stuff, man. I love it. And I try to filter out as much TV as possible. And I love this business. It's not always about how much money you guys make in wholesaling. It's about how much time you can gain. Yep. Like, I've been married to my wife 25 years. She's probably tired of seeing me every day. But when we have friends and family come, we're like, I don't understand why your husband's always around. She's like, he's always around. He's always around. And so involving like your spouse, I think that's another topic in conversation, because I've been through that whole roller coaster, and finding the seat for them if they want to do it, and never forcing it on them, and making it fun. So I've had fun, man. I love this business, man. I'm addicted to it. I don't want to stop. I'll probably do it till the day I die. That's how much I love it.
Me too.
And
hey, how do people get Rick, you've got a show where you talk about how people can get
I just go to Flip with Rick on YouTube, and we post every day on there, and we just share our journey, father son. We have a lot of fun. We show our deals. We run a really lean staff, and we do high margins, and everybody knows us in Port St. Lucie, and I probably get 2 or 3 deals a month just from everybody I know. So if you guys got a deal in Port St. Lucie, hit me up, or if you need help with some acquisitions, I have guys on the ground.
Awesome. Pace, live shows.
Sunday service, Sunday night,
service, baby.
7 p.m. Sunday service every single week without fail. Brent Daniels, what about you, brother?
We went deep into the story of the Ginns today. We didn't get to a lot of questions. If you do have questions that are pressing, join me Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is on the Brent Daniels YouTube channel. That show is designed to answer your questions. So I'll see you there on Wednesday. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. Zach,
thank you guys.
Everybody, seriously, download that book that Zach put together. I'm very excited about it. I didn't even know about it, to be honest, Rick. So that's awesome.
Yeah, bags of riches.
Give it to your kids, especially if they're, have some passion. If they have some stars in their eyes, a little fire in their belly about real estate or about what you're doing, I think that'd be really great. So, yeah,
awesome.
Thank you, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on Wholesale Hotline again, Monday nights, 5 p.m. Arizona time. See you guys next week.
Love you guys.
Awesome.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.